I am pleased to be joined here today by my colleagues, Representative Deanne Mazzochi of Elmhurst, Assistant Leader Grant Wehrli, Representative Tom Morrison, Representative Dan Ugasti, and Representative Amy Grant. I've asked them to join me today because they were all members of the property tax force that was created last spring. We all know there are many challenges and many problems facing the state of Illinois. Our job as elected members of the House of Representatives is to deal with these challenges and solve the most difficult issues with the goal to create an attractive and prosperous state. It's inherent within our oath of office. Time and time again, we have seen a chronic failure of the Democrat majority to deal with the most important issues facing the state of Illinois. The recent Property Tax Relief Task Force woeful failure is no different in a shining example of their continued failure to address the most important issues that Illinois citizens are demanding. Everyone knows that taxes, property taxes, are a main reason that's driving people from the state of Illinois. The unaffordable and escalating taxes, property taxes, income taxes, have driven down home values, driven down disposable family income, and forced families to move out of state, even to our east, to our neighboring state of Indiana. Let's be clear. Members of the Democrat majority in the House of Representatives traded their votes for the progressive tax amendment for a task force on property taxes. Following the release of their draft within the last week, we once again see them refuse to be serious. Them, the House Democrats, to be serious at a time when our citizens are so desperate and wanting for change in state government. I'm not going to get into the process of the task force because I am convinced that there really was no process at all. 80-plus members who barely met issued a draft report after a legislative deadline was not met, is nothing more than a complete breakdown of any concept of process. And once in a while we have to think about process. This is an elected form of government. Substance and process are both important. But I do want to talk about substance, or lack thereof, in this draft report. So for a state that is so in need of property tax reform, the Democrats have instead proposed tax increases. Heaven help the middle class. One proposal by the House Democrats will cost Illinoisans over $19 billion in new state taxes to cover the cost of education funding. Another proposal is a new sales tax on services to the tune of billions of additional tax dollars for more and more government spending. How many people have to leave Illinois before Democrats realize that we cannot tax ourselves to fiscal stability and prosperity? Here are the facts. Illinois has about 7,000 local units of government that tax property to the tune of $31.8 billion a year. We have the highest number of units of government of any state. And what is the recommendation from the task force on this? Well, we need to raise more taxes. The typical response from the Democrats in Springfield. How do we solve our problems? We need to raise taxes. Even on the middle class, the ones they pretend that they protect. $31.8 billion in property taxes, many of those dollars spent complying with unfunded mandates imposed by the state of Illinois through the General Assembly. And what is the recommendation from the task force? Raise more taxes. And that $31.8 billion in property taxes that are currently being levied, that's nearly $1 billion from the year before. An extra $1 billion in new government taxation every year, and we don't do anything about it. I want to give you a personal example of the dysfunction of local governments that we have in our backyards. I have for the past many years have been attempting to pass a common sense bill to eliminate an entity, this sleepy little entity that's in my neighborhood called the Lyons Township School Trustee. It's called the Lyons Township, Treasurer's Office, School Trustee. It's a branch of government that has outlived its necessity. They serve the local school districts. They distribute hundreds of millions of dollars to the public schools. They also perform payroll services to our schools. They provide investment services. And what I have found out after discussing with every one of the school districts in my area is that they don't want these services. They can do it on their own. But this fiefdom that has been created out there in Lyons Township, they continue to hold on. I have passed legislation twice out of the House to allow at least District 204, the Lyons Township High School, take them out of the school treasurer's office, because they can perform these services on their own and should not have to pay this entity for these services. But I can't get it passed out of the Senate. The Senate will not take it up. But these are the same Democrats who within the last 10 years have eliminated the Oak Park River Forest School Trustee and also the Berwyn and Cicero trustees and also Leyden Township trustees, school trustees. But we can't do it in Lyons Township, in Leyden Township, but we can't do it in Lyons Township. That's just another example of the fiefdoms that have been created by so many people, and in this particular case, Democrats who are in Lyons Township are holding on to this little sleepy area of government for the wrong reasons. But these are the same Democrats in Lyons Township that we're reading about on other issues. And I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue to force this issue to give my schools the proper respect that they need, like the other districts that Democrats have given. So this isn't just complaining. People call us the party of no. I've heard that time and time again. Now, in this task force, we presented an A through Z list of potential reforms, 26 in particular, 26 reforms with the property tax reform group from the Republicans. They were summarily rejected in the same way that my concern for my sleepy little district, Lyons Township School District, has been rejected. That's how they approach our issues and things that are priorities for us. I don't want Illinois residents to be fooled by the false promises made by Democrat members of the General Assembly. If they were serious about property tax relief, we would have done it by now. I've been down there long enough. I've seen it, and I've seen committees come and go. Instead, they are concerned with this report, and also based on their actions last spring, they're only concerned about raising taxes more on Illinois citizens, Illinois small businesses, and our employers in Illinois. So with that, I would like to hand the podium over to Deanne Mazzochi, the Republican chair of the Property Tax Relief Task Force. Deanne.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Deanne Mazzochi, Mazzochi, District 47, Elmhurst. Every time I go door to door in my district homeowners, especially the ones who are on fixed incomes, they are struggling. And across the state, we hear an outcry for reform. Why? Property taxes is one of the main things that's driving their financial concerns. We've seen it, we've heard it again and again, and the spring session failed to produce any significant action. But instead, we got another task force. I wanted to join this task force because I am interested in making sure that Illinois residents get real reform, because they deserve real reform in a government that's responsive to them. But the Democrats controlling the Property Tax Relief Task Force, first deadline that came up in October, they missed it. Critical deadline that came up in December, they blew it. And when you look at what they presented, the draft, you have to ask yourself, are these Democrats serious about property tax reform? I suggest they are not. In recent weeks, hope for a substantive final report was diminished by the fact that there was little to no chance for members of the task force to debate, to contribute to a final product. I called on the Democrats, bring the task force together. There's 88 of us. People can participate by phone. Let's bring these ideas out. Let's talk about them, debate them, see if we can find some compromise consensus, and then actually present something meaningful to the governor. They declined. So we can create commissions and task forces until we're blue in the face, but until we actually get serious about debating and prioritizing and voting on the substantive issues that concern our taxpayers, we're not going to see any relief for seniors. We're not going to see any relief for families. We're not going to see any relief for the middle class. And we're not going to see any impactful, concrete action that the General Assembly can take. Now, one of these issues affecting property taxes is the skyrocketing number of new unfunded mandates. Since 1992, the Illinois General Assembly has passed 220 mandates impacting school districts. I've talked to my administrators, I've talked to my faculty members. They don't want them, they don't need them, they don't think they bring value to the educational experience. But that's 7.5 unfunded mandates a year that the schools have to pay for, and they pass those costs on to homeowners. Now, a few years ago, there was a local government consolidation and school mandates task force. They finished their work December 31st, 2015. What happened to those recommendations? Democrats ignored them. Nothing's been done to slow down the number of mandates we're forcing on our school districts. To follow up on Jim Durkin's point, House Republicans brought forward dozens of ideas for property tax relief. Democrats controlling the task forces at both the subcommittee and the full committee level either refused to consider them, refused to debate them, and summarily dismissed them. They wouldn't consider them, and just a few of our ideas that did not make their way even a glimpse into the Democrat report. Pension reform for future employees to free up money for education, which would decrease the reliance on property taxes. Greater reforms to our local government pension systems, because local governments are struggling to provide services because the pension payments are eating into their budgets. Enhanced transparency on property tax bills. If the point in time when you're looking at your property tax bill, you can't even see where these thousands upon thousands of dollars are going for, how do you even know what to target as the problem? Expanded property tax relief for seniors, including a possible exemption from part of the school district levy if they no longer have children in the schools, and expanded assessment freeze. There was a lot of talk about consolidation, but we also need to talk about local control and making sure that our school districts actually can share resources as opposed to duplicating all kinds of activities that are already going on in other school districts. One of the other issues relating to these state mandates is that the legislature passes these mandates, the teachers may look at them and say, this isn't going to bring any educational benefit. Do we care? No, we pass them anyway. So we actually recommended, why not at least make sure that for every state mandate we want to do, pilot it, look at it for 5 years, have the Illinois State Board of Education pay for it, and then if it actually brings about benefits, well, then we can mandate it on the rest of the state. No, no, no. General Assembly doesn't want to surrender that power to evidence-based results. We wanted more local control for school boards to establish an appropriate levy mix, expand the permissible fund levy categories and allocations across property types to make sure that we're achieving improved school funding that actually is tied to local resources. We proposed capping administrator pensions so that they can't exceed the average household income in the state of Illinois, because administrative pensions are going absolutely crazy and driving costs up. None of these were up for debate or up for consideration. So as a consequence, we don't believe that the Democrats are serious about property tax reform. We think that there is a lot of work to do, and if you want your tax levies to come down, you've got to consider real structural reform, and it's sad that the Democrats just aren't there. And I'll now turn the floor over to Grant Wehrli.
Good morning. Grant Wehrli, Assistant Minority Leader, Naperville, Warrenville. As Yogi Berra once famously said, it's deja vu all over again. Yet another task force to address property taxes. Let me take this opportunity to review some history on these task forces. Senate Joint Resolution 10 in 1978, or 75, was to look at property taxes. 1982, the Tax Reform Commission. 1995, the Equity 95 Property Tax Classification Task Force. 1997, the Electric Utility Property Assessment Task Force. This is one of my all-time favorites. 1998, the Governor's Blue Ribbon Commission on Property Taxes. 2004, the Property Tax Task Force under House Resolution 917. 2008, House Resolution 527, which instructed the House of Representatives Revenue and Finance Committee to conduct an investigation into ways to improve property tax assessment practices across the state. 2009, the Property Tax Reform and Relief Task Force. This one sounds suspiciously familiar. 2018, the TIF Reform Task Force. Has anyone, and I mean anyone, seen their property taxes go down as a result of any of these commissions? This is the standard playbook of the Democratic Party, is we're going to get votes for things that we need to pass, and we'll placate you with a task force that accomplishes absolutely nothing other than wasting time. It is crystal clear to anyone that pays property taxes in the state of Illinois that we need serious reforms, and we've needed them, well, according to this, going back to 1975. But yet, here we are with no action whatsoever on real reforms. But instead, we heard from Leader Durkin that what they truly are proposing is even higher taxes in order to somehow disguise it as property tax relief. I look forward to seeing them thread that needle. 88 members on a task force. A couple of years ago, we had some joint committees of the whole on the House floor. I would argue that we'd be better off calling a special session of the General Assembly and actually having a joint committee of the whole on property taxes. This will do nothing to address property taxes. It's time for some serious, meaningful property tax reform. Through this task force, we put forth ideas. Those ideas were summarily dismissed and will never see the light of day, and that's unfortunate.